Let me teach this today, not just preach it. Because if you don't understand the lesson, you'll shout and still go home in chains. There is an enemy far more dangerous than any man, any system, any storm. People spend their whole lives trying to conquer mountains, trying to defeat systems, trying to outrun pain. But the greatest challenge you will ever face is not the boss who overlooked you, not the people who betrayed you, not the economy that failed you. The greatest battle you will ever face is the one going on right inside your own mind. The most violent storm you'll ever weather is the one raging in your soul. You can dress it up, you can mask it with makeup and success, you can silence it with busyness and distractions. But when the lights go out, when the applause fades, when the house gets quiet, you hear it. That voice, that thing inside of you that says, you're not enough, you'll never change, they don't really love you, you're too broken to matter. And you know what's dangerous about that voice? It doesn't sound foreign. It sounds like you, that's the trap. It doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within. Most people don't lose the war in public. They lose it in the private spaces no one sees. They lose it between midnight and morning, between two decisions, between the faith to go forward and the fear that says stay where you are. The inner enemy is cunning because it uses your own history against you. It weaponizes your own memories. It doesn't fight fair. It drags up every mistake you made, every failure you endured, and says, see, this is who you are. But let me teach you something. You are not what you went through. You are not your worst day. You are not your trauma. You are not the lie they told about you or the label you put on yourself. But if you don't recognize the battle for what it is, you will start making permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. You'll start shrinking your life to fit the size of your fear. You'll start walking in circles, not because you don't have the ability to break through, but because the war inside is louder than the truth in front of you. See, when God gets ready to bless you, he speaks to your potential. But when the inner enemy speaks, it targets your insecurity. One builds you, the other breaks you. One pulls you forward, the other holds you hostage. And here's the real danger. If you don't deal with the war inside, you'll sabotage every opportunity that comes your way. You'll push away love. You'll walk away from purpose. You'll downplay your own greatness, not because it isn't there, but because something in you told you you're not worthy of it. You can't fight an internal war with external weapons. This is not a fight that can be won with status or money or applause. That's why some of the wealthiest, most successful people in the world are still tormented inside. Because peace is not a product of possessions. It's a result of internal alignment. You've got to get your spirit in agreement with your mind, and your mind in agreement with truth. You've got to learn how to speak louder than your fear, how to command your soul when it wants to give up, how to say, no, I will not be my own worst enemy. You've got to recognize that the war within isn't just about what happened to you. It's about how you interpreted what happened to you. Two people can go through the same pain, and one becomes bitter while the other becomes better. What made the difference? The internal narrative. One listened to the voice of defeat. The other rewrote the script. You've got to become the editor of your own story. Stop giving the mic to your inner critic and start giving the mic to your inner warrior. That voice that says, yes, I've been through hell, but I'm still standing. Yes, I made mistakes, but I learned from them. Yes, I feel fear, but I walk by faith. That's the voice that changes everything. You don't need someone to come rescue you. You need to rise up and rescue yourself from yourself, because if you don't defeat the inner enemy, every blessing will become a burden. Every opportunity will feel like a threat. Every relationship will trigger your fears. But when you win the war within, the world outside can't shake you. When you find peace in your soul, no storm can rob it from you. The greatest war is not about what's happening around you. It's about what's happening in you. And once you win that battle, once you conquer that space between your ears and settle the doubts in your heart, there is no limit to what you can become. There is no wall you can't climb. There is no destiny too high, because you won't be fighting the world anymore. You'll be fighting with yourself instead of against yourself. And that, my friend, is where the real power begins. You keep thinking the problem is where you live, who hurt you, how much money you've got, or what somebody said about you. But let me tell you something that might change your whole life. Your battle is not your circumstance, it's your mind. It's not what's going on around you that's holding you back. It's what's going on inside your head. You can change cities, change jobs, change relationships, and still feel stuck. Because if you don't change your thinking, your new environment will still produce the same outcome. A changed life doesn't start with a new situation. It starts with a renewed mind. That's why people can come out of prison and still be free, while others can live in mansions and still be in chains. Because it's not about what you're in, it's about what's in you. Your mind is not just a tool, it's a battlefield, and every day, whether you know it or not, there is a war being waged between what you believe and what you fear, between truth and lies, between growth and stagnation. And let me tell you something. Your mind will either become a launching pad for destiny or a prison cell for defeat, depending on who's winning that war inside of you. The enemy wants to convince you that your surroundings determine your future. But that's a lie. Joseph ruled Egypt after being betrayed, enslaved, and imprisoned. Esther saved a nation from a palace she didn't ask to be in. Paul wrote most of the New Testament from a jail cell. So don't tell me you can't have power in pain. Don't tell me you can't move forward while under pressure. Don't tell me your circumstance is too hard when your mind is the real gatekeeper to your freedom. See, a defeated mind will misinterpret opportunity as a threat. A broken mind will sabotage blessing. A fearful mind will turn a season of growth into a cycle of regret. That's why your thoughts matter. Because your thoughts are the blueprint, and your life is just following the instructions. You've got to realize that your thoughts are not facts. They are filters. If your filter is fear, everything looks like a risk. If your filter is pain, everything feels like a wound. If your filter is rejection, every no feels like abandonment. And the longer you live through broken filters, the more distorted your reality becomes. That's why the enemy doesn't need to touch your body. He just needs access to your belief system. Because if he can convince you that you're worthless, that you're behind, that it's too late, he doesn't have to chain you, you'll chain yourself. You'll lock doors that were never closed, you'll stop climbing mountains you were born to conquer, but God didn't call you to walk in fear, he called you to walk in renewed vision. That's why Romans 12:2 says, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind," not the removal of your enemies. Not the increase of your income, not the fixing of your circumstances, the renewing of your mind, that's where the transformation begins. So let me challenge you, what thoughts have you been rehearsing that are killing your future? What inner dialogue have you allowed to take the throne in your mind? Because your thoughts are shaping your actions are shaping your habits, and your habits are shaping your destiny. You cannot afford to think casually about what you allow in your mind. You've got to guard it like a battlefield. You've got to defend your peace like your life depends on it. Because it does. You've got to take authority over the thoughts that are not aligned with your purpose. Just like you'd refuse to let a thief in your house, you've got to refuse to let doubt take up residence in your spirit. And when those old thoughts come back, and they will, you don't argue with them. You don't negotiate with them. You replace them. You've got to have truth ready. You've got to speak what God says, not what fear says. You've got to tell yourself, I am more than a conqueror. I am equipped for this. I am not what I've been through. I am what I choose to become. Understand this. Your circumstance may not change overnight, but if your mind does, your life will soon follow, because a changed mind attracts a changed path. A renewed mind will see options where others see obstacles. A healed mind will break generational patterns, and a focused mind will do in months what a distracted mind couldn't do in decades. So stop asking life to get easier. Start commanding your thoughts to get stronger. Because once your mind aligns with your mission, no devil in hell and no voice in your past can stop the momentum that's coming for you. Once you realize the war was never about your environment, it was always about your inner agreement, then you can stop wasting energy on the outside and start rebuilding the inside. Victory starts not with what's around you, but with what's within you. Get your mind right, and your life will follow. You will never fix what you're too afraid to face. You can pray all you want, shout all you want, get hands laid on you every Sunday. But if you won't look in the mirror, if you won't confront the real thing that's holding you back, you'll keep walking in circles around the same mountain, calling it God's timing when it's really your avoidance. Some people are stuck not because they don't have favor, but because they don't have the courage to confront. We are living in a time where it's easier to blame than it is to be honest. It's easier to point fingers at your father who left, your teacher who doubted you, your boss who overlooked you. But what about the parts of you that haven't healed? What about the bitterness you've buried so deep that even you don't recognize it anymore? What about the pride that protects your pain but blocks your progress? What about the cycles that keep repeating not because life is unfair, but because you won't sit still long enough to face the wound that's driving the wheel? You cannot conquer what you refuse to confront. If you don't confront your fear, it will rule your decisions. If you don't confront your trauma, it will leak out into every relationship. If you don't confront your insecurities, you will camouflage them with performance, with people, pleasing, with perfectionism. And here's the danger. You'll start calling coping mechanisms your personality. You'll call your fear caution, your distrust wisdom, your passivity peace. But it's not peace if it's built on the avoidance of pain, its prison with prettier walls. Growth doesn't come from comfort. Deliverance doesn't happen in denial. The path to freedom runs through the fire, not around it. You've got to get to the place where you stop waiting for the feeling of strength and start choosing strength. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to confront the fear, even if your voice shakes and your knees tremble. You might have to cry through it. You might have to confess things you've never said out loud. You might have to forgive someone who's not sorry. But confrontation is the doorway to transformation. Let me teach you something. Hiding does not heal. Avoidance is not protection. It's prolonging the pain. You cannot heal what you pretend doesn't exist. You cannot be free while you're still feeding your secrets. Secrets grow in the dark, and so does shame. But when you bring it into the light, when you speak it out, when you stare it in the face and say, "You will not control me anymore," that's when your chains start to break. It takes maturity to confront what you've buried. It takes humility to admit that the enemy wasn't just what happened to you, but also how you responded to it. It takes spiritual strength to face not just what hurt you, but how you let that hurt shape your identity. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is tell the truth to yourself. Not the filtered truth, not the polished truth, but the raw, honest, gut-level truth that says, "I've been running, I've been numbing, I've been surviving, but not living." You have to decide you're done hiding. You have to decide that your future is worth more than your fear, that your peace is worth more than your pride, that your healing is worth the discomfort of confrontation. Because until you do, your potential will always be locked behind the door of what you won't face. Think about it. How many opportunities have you missed because you were too afraid to fail? How many relationships have you ruined because you never dealt with your trust issues? How many gifts have gone unused because you let shame silence your voice? It's not that the opportunity wasn't there. It's that you weren't ready because you weren't willing to confront what's been stealing your power. Every stronghold must be named before it can be cast down. You can't conquer anxiety if you won't admit you're afraid. You can't conquer addiction if you keep telling yourself, "I've got it under control." You can't conquer anger if you won't trace it back to the rejection that caused it. You have to get real, get still, get honest, because once you confront it, you can correct it. Once you face it, you can fight it. And once you fight it, you can finally defeat it. This is not about condemnation. It's about confrontation with purpose. Because confronting your issues doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. It makes you powerful. It makes you free. When you own your story, when you stop hiding from your history, when you stop running from your reflection, you start rising into your destiny. So today is your turning point. Today is the day you stop making excuses and start making progress. Today is the day you face the fear, the flaw, the failure, and say, "I'm not running anymore." Today, you reclaim the pieces of yourself that were scattered by trauma, by silence, by shame. You cannot conquer what you are unwilling to confront. But the moment you do, everything changes, not all at once, not overnight. But the process of freedom begins where truth meets courage, and that process starts with you. Blaming others may feel good for a moment, but it will bankrupt your future if you live in that space too long. Yes, they hurt you. Yes, they left you. Yes, they misjudged you. But at some point, healing is no longer their responsibility. It's yours. The moment you keep waiting for an apology, for validation, for somebody to come back and undo what they did, is the moment you hand them the keys to your destiny. And let me tell you something. No one deserves that kind of power over your life but God. You've got to make a decision. Either you're going to be powerful or you're going to keep pointing fingers. You can't do both, because blame is a prison. It keeps you locked in a story where you're always the victim and never the victor. And as long as you're the victim in your own story, you can't write a new chapter. You can't build a new life while holding on to old excuses. You can't walk in deliverance while clinging to bitterness like it's your identity. Deliverance starts when you stop saying, "They made me this way," and start asking, "What can I do to grow beyond this?" Because no matter what they did to you, they don't have the authority to define your outcome, unless you give it to them. Your past may explain you, but it cannot excuse you. Your pain may shape your perspective, but it should not own your purpose. You don't get free by changing people. You get free by changing you, and that's hard. That's not popular. That's not Instagram worthy, but it's the truth. The raw, real, unfiltered truth. You've got to stop giving your energy to people who are no longer in the room. You've got to stop rehearsing the betrayal, reliving the disappointment, retelling the same story of what they did. At some point, you've got to say enough. I will not live another day enslaved to something I cannot change. That's the line, that's the shift. That's the moment your healing begins, when you move out of blame and into ownership. When you stop saying, "It's their fault," and start asking, "What's my responsibility now?" Maybe they planted the seed of dysfunction, but are you watering it? Maybe they introduced the wound, but are you reopening it every time you dwell on it? The power to heal, to rise, to change, it's already in you, but it won't activate while you're waiting for someone else to come fix what only you can confront. Some people stay bound not because the chains are too tight, but because blame gives them a false sense of protection. Blame says, "I don't have to grow if it's your fault. I don't have to take risks if the world is against me. I don't have to change if I can keep blaming my circumstances." But that's a lie. Blame is not protection. It's poison. It numbs the pain for a while, but kills your progress in the long run. You've got to get to a place where you choose freedom over comfort, and freedom will require you to admit some things you don't want to face. That maybe you stayed too long, maybe you didn't speak up, maybe you ignored the signs. That's not to condemn you. It's to empower you, because the moment you say, "This part was on me," is the moment you realize, and that means I have the power to change it. There is no breakthrough without accountability. There is no transformation without responsibility. If you keep waiting for someone else to change for your healing to begin, you're going to be stuck for the rest of your life. But the moment you take ownership, not of what they did, but of how you move forward, that's when heaven begins to move on your behalf. That's when chains start falling. That's when your story starts shifting. This isn't just about emotional healing. This is spiritual warfare. Because as long as the enemy can keep you looking backward, he can keep you from walking forward. As long as you're focused on who hurt you, you won't notice the doors God is opening for you. As long as you're rehearsing pain, you won't recognize purpose. You cannot embrace your calling while still carrying your blame. So make the decision today, right now. Decide that your peace is worth more than your pride, that your growth is worth more than your grudge, that your calling is worth more than your comfort zone. Lay the blame down, lay the excuses down, lay the victimhood down, not because they deserve it, but because you do. You deserve to be free, you deserve to be whole, you deserve to live without carrying the weight of people who never said sorry, and the beautiful truth is, you don't need them to. Your freedom is not waiting on their apology. It's waiting on your decision. You may not have caused the pain, but you are the one who gets to write what happens next. Victory is not something you wait to feel before you act. Victory is something you decide to live out even when you don't feel like it. If you wait for the emotion to move you, you'll never move. If you wait to feel strong before you fight, you'll never throw a punch. Because real victory is not birthed in your feelings. It's birthed in your discipline. Discipline is the engine that moves you when your emotions don't show up. It's what keeps you praying when you don't hear an answer. It's what keeps you sowing when you don't see a harvest. It's what keeps you speaking life even when death is all around you. That's victory, not the loud celebration after the breakthrough, but the quiet consistency when no one sees the pain you're pressing through. Some people think victory means you're always smiling, always confident, always fearless. But no, sometimes victory is getting out of bed with tears in your eyes and still choosing to believe. Sometimes victory is walking away from what's familiar because it's not feeding your future. Sometimes victory is turning the other cheek, not because you're weak, but because you refuse to let someone else's chaos poison your character. That kind of strength doesn't come from feelings. It comes from discipline. The enemy is not just after your joy. He's after your habits. Because if he can disrupt your discipline, he can disconnect you from your destiny. He knows that if you keep praying, keep fasting, keep worshiping, keep working, keep walking, you'll break through eventually. So he tries to make you tired. He tries to make you distracted. He'll use delay to make you doubt. He'll use silence to make you stop. But let me tell you something. The devil cannot stop what you refuse to quit. Discipline is not glamorous. It's not always visible. It's not always applauded. But it is always powerful, because it means you have trained your soul to obey your purpose, not your feelings. And that's what separates those who rise from those who remain. Everybody wants the results, but not everybody wants the routine. Everybody wants the platform, but not everybody wants the process. Everybody wants the victory, but not everybody wants the discipline that produces it. You've got to train your spirit to stand when your feelings want to flee. You've got to develop habits that align with your future, not just your comfort. You can't live victorious on emotional highs. You've got to build a foundation that can hold you even when the storms come. And storms will come, the wind will blow, the pressure will rise, the feelings will fade. But when you've trained yourself in discipline, you don't fall, you keep building. That's why the Bible says, "Be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord." That doesn't happen by accident. That's the fruit of a disciplined life. That's what it looks like to win when everything is trying to wear you down, because discipline doesn't say, "I feel like it." Discipline says, "I'm committed to it." Discipline doesn't depend on mood, it depends on mission. You have to build your life like a soldier on assignment. You're not here to be entertained. You're not here to blend in. You're not here to follow your feelings wherever they lead. You are here to fulfill a calling. And that calling requires discipline. It requires structure. It requires sacrifice. You might have to say no to some things other people say yes to. You might have to go to bed while others party. You might have to stay focused when distractions come dressed like blessings. And yes, there will be days you want to quit. Days you feel like nothing's working. Days when everyone else seems to be moving faster. But if you stay consistent, if you keep showing up, if you keep putting your hand to the plow, your harvest will come. Not because of how you felt, but because of what you chose. Victory is a choice, a discipline, a mindset, a daily decision to keep becoming what God called you to be, no matter how it looks, no matter how it feels, no matter who believes in you. You don't have to feel like a conqueror to live like one. You don't have to feel courageous to take the next step. You just have to be disciplined enough to show up every day and move forward. You don't train for war when you're in the battle. You train before it comes. And some of you are waiting until life gets hard to get strong. But victory is built in private, long before it's revealed in public. You've got to win the war in your habits before you win the battle in your life. You've got to defeat laziness, procrastination, self-pity, distraction, because the real enemy isn't always outside. It's the part of you that wants to take the easy way out. And discipline is how you defeat that voice, daily. So let the world chase feelings, let them follow trends, but you stay focused, stay grounded, stay faithful, keep doing the work, keep showing up, because your victory won't always feel like fire. It will feel like faithfulness. And that is enough. That's how you win the war within. Now hear me, and hear me well. The greatest battle you will ever fight is not around you, but within you. It's not your environment. It's not your upbringing. It's not even your enemies. It's the inner enemy that whispers lies in the dark, that clings to your past, that doubts your destiny, that resists your growth. But I came to declare to you today, you are stronger than your struggle. You are not the voice of fear. You are not the pain of your past. You are not the mistakes that tried to label you. You are a child of God, born with purpose, wrapped in destiny, called for impact, and armed for victory. But in order to rise, you must go inward. You must face it, name it, confront it, and overcome it. Starve the lies, feed your faith. Stop running and start rising. Because if you don't deal with the inner enemy, the outer victories won't mean a thing. You'll sabotage blessings you prayed for. You'll mismanage opportunities you waited years to see. You'll keep repeating cycles in new seasons, wondering why nothing ever changes. But if you are bold enough to examine yourself, if you are brave enough to hold up the mirror and say, "This is the part of me I've been avoiding," then heaven will move on your behalf. Because God doesn't bless who you pretend to be. He anoints the real you, the vulnerable you, the honest you. So stop waiting to feel free. Start walking in freedom. Stop blaming others for your condition, and take back control of your transformation. Stop waiting to feel ready, and make the disciplined choice to move forward anyway. This is your turning point. This is your spiritual wake-up call. No more excuses, no more delays, no more hiding behind hurt and hoping for healing to come find you. You go get it. Stand in your truth. Fight for your mind, protect your spirit, guard your habits, walk in your calling, and silence that inner enemy once and for all, because victory is not for the perfect. It's for the persistent, not for those who never fall, but for those who refuse to stay down. So I declare, you will rise, you will conquer, you will grow, you will change, you will defeat the inner enemy. In Jesus' name, my men.